The champagne flute slipped from her manicured fingers, crystal shattering against Italian marble as the words hung in the air. "She's with me," Marcus said calmly, his hand gently resting on his daughter's shoulder while the entire restaurant held its breath. Before we dive into the story, make sure to smash subscribe, because tomorrow we have an extra special story for you that will blow your mind. The Belmont was the kind of restaurant where reservations were made months in advance, and where a single appetizer cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across tables dressed in crisp white linen, and the soft murmur of wealth floated through the air like expensive perfume. Marcus Williams had saved for 3 months to bring his daughter Zara here for her 13th birthday. It wasn't about impressing anyone. It was about keeping a promise he'd made when she was 5. Back when her mother was still alive. "One day, baby girl, I'll take you to the fanciest place in the city, and we'll eat like queens and kings." 8 years later, he was finally making good on that promise. Marcus adjusted his best suit, the charcoal gray one he'd bought for job interviews, and smiled at Zara across the table. She looked radiant in her purple dress, the one they'd found at the thrift store and altered together, learning from YouTube videos. Her natural hair was styled in 2 perfect puffs, decorated with the butterfly clips her mother had loved. "This place is incredible, Dad," she whispered, eyes wide as she took in the opulent surroundings. "Are you sure we can afford this?" Marcus reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "Don't you worry about that. Tonight's about you, birthday girl." The truth was, he'd been working double shifts at the hospital for months. As a respiratory therapist, the pay was decent, but raising a daughter alone in the city meant every dollar was already spoken for. But some promises were worth any sacrifice. They'd just ordered Zara, choosing the salmon after changing her mind 3 times. Marcus settling for the chicken when the atmosphere in the restaurant shifted. Conversations dimmed, heads turned. Even the waitstaff seemed to stand a little straighter. Victoria Ashford had arrived. Marcus didn't need to know her name to recognize money when it walked through the door. Everything about her screamed wealth, from the designer dress that probably cost more than his car, to the way she moved through the space like she owned it, which, Marcus would later learn, she essentially did. Her family's investment firm held majority stakes in half the restaurants in the city. She glided past their table, her entourage of 3 trailing behind 2 women who looked like they'd stepped out of a fashion magazine, and a man in a suit sharp enough to cut glass. The scent of her perfume lingered, something complex and expensive that made Marcus think of midnight gardens and old money. "Dad, who is that?" Zara whispered. "Just another diner, baby, like us." But even as he said it, Marcus knew it wasn't true. People like Victoria Ashford didn't dine. They held court. 20 minutes later, their food had arrived, and Marcus was watching Zara laugh at his terrible joke about why the salmon crossed the road when he felt eyes on them. Victoria Ashford was staring from her table in the private section, her gaze fixed on Zara with an intensity that made Marcus's protective instincts flare. He shifted slightly, putting himself more squarely between his daughter and that stare. But Victoria's expression wasn't hostile. It was something else entirely, something that looked almost like recognition, though Marcus was certain they'd never met. "Dad, you're not listening," Zara said, nudging his hand. "Sorry, baby, what were you saying?" "I was asking if Mom would have liked this place." Marcus's heart squeezed. Even after 3 years, mentions of Denise could still catch him off guard. "Your mom would have loved it," he said softly. "But she would have spent the whole time worrying about using the wrong fork." Zara giggled. "Remember when she tried to teach us about proper table etiquette from that book she got at the library? And we ended up having a food fight with the peas?" Marcus grinned. She was so mad, but she couldn't stop laughing. They were lost in the memory, neither noticing Victoria approaching until her shadow fell across their table. Up close, she was even more striking, smooth olive skin, dark hair swept into an elegant twist, and eyes the color of aged whiskey. But it was the way she looked at Zara that made Marcus tense, like she was seeing a ghost. "Excuse me," Victoria's voice was cultured, each word precisely placed. "I don't mean to interrupt your dinner, but I couldn't help noticing." She paused, her composure cracking slightly. "Your daughter, She's beautiful. Marcus's hand moved instinctively to Zara's shoulder. Thank you, he said carefully. Zara, never shy, smiled up at the woman. I like your dress. It's really pretty. Something flickered across Victoria's face. Pain, maybe, or memory. Thank you, sweetheart. Are you celebrating something special? It's my birthday, Zara announced proudly. I'm 13 today. 13. Victoria repeated the word like it meant something more. That's a very special age. She seemed to collect herself, straightening. I'm sorry for intruding. Please enjoy your meal. But as she turned to go, her heel caught on the edge of the Persian rug. She stumbled, reaching out instinctively, and her hand knocked over Zara's water glass. The liquid spread across the table, soaking into the white tablecloth and splashing onto Zara's dress. Oh! Zara jumped up, looking down at the wet purple fabric. The restaurant seemed to hold its collective breath. Marcus saw the waitstaff exchange glances, saw Victoria's entourage half rise from their seats. He could feel the weight of every eye in the place. Victoria's face had gone pale. I'm so sorry. I'm so terribly sorry. Let me... She was reaching for her purse, probably to throw money at the problem like her kind always did. Please, your dress. I'll replace it. She's with me, Marcus said calmly, his hand gentle on Zara's shoulder. We've got it handled. The words were simple, but something in his tone steady, protective, unbothered by her wealth or status, made Victoria freeze. She stared at him, this man in his modest suit who was looking at her not with deference or anger, but with a quiet dignity that seemed to shift something fundamental in the air between them. Dad, it's okay, Zara said, dabbing at her dress with her napkin. It's just water. It'll dry. She looked up at Victoria and smiled. Don't worry about it. My dad says accidents happen to everyone, even fancy people. Marcus almost chuckled at that, but he kept his expression neutral. Zara's right. No harm done. Victoria stood there for another moment, seeming to struggle with something. Then she nodded slowly. You're very gracious. Both of you. She hesitated, then added, Happy birthday, Zara. As she walked away, Marcus noticed she wasn't quite as steady as before. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached her table. He turned his attention back to Zara, helping her dry off as best they could. You okay, baby girl? I'm fine, Dad. She seemed sad though, didn't she? Marcus looked over at Victoria's table, where she sat staring at nothing, her food untouched. Yeah, he said quietly. She did. They continued with their dinner. Marcus determined not to let the incident spoil Zara's birthday. He told more bad jokes, listened to her talk about her science project, and pretended not to notice that Victoria kept glancing their way. When the waiter brought the dessert menu, Zara's eyes lit up at the chocolate souffle, then dimmed when she saw the price. Maybe we could share one? She suggested. Marcus was about to agree when the waiter cleared his throat. Actually, your desserts have already been taken care of. Compliments of Miss Ashford. He gestured toward Victoria's table. In fact, your entire meal has been covered. What? Marcus started to protest. We don't need... She insisted, sir. And... The waiter lowered his voice. I wouldn't recommend arguing with Miss Ashford. She owns 40% of this establishment. Marcus looked over to find Victoria watching them. When their eyes met, she raised her glass slightly, not in a toast, but in something that looked almost like an apology. Or a question. What happens next will challenge everything they thought they knew about each other, reveal a secret that's been buried for 13 years, and remind us that sometimes the most powerful connections come from the most unexpected places. If you're enjoying this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more. The chocolate souffle arrived with a sparkler, and the waitstaff sang happy birthday to Zara, who blushed and grinned through the whole thing. Marcus watched his daughter's joy and felt a familiar ache. Denise should have been here for this. She should have been the one fixing Zara's hair, taking too many pictures, embarrassing her with loud clapping when the song ended. But life had other plans, and a drunk driver on I-95 had stolen those future moments 3 years ago. Marcus had learned to navigate the grief, to be both mother and father, to somehow fill a void that could never truly be filled. But moments like these, milestones that Denise had dreamed of witnessing, still cut deep. "Make a wish, baby," he said softly. Zara closed her eyes, her face serious with concentration, then blew out the sparkler. The smoke curled up between them, and for just a second, Marcus could have sworn he smelled Denise's shea butter lotion. "What did you wish for?" he asked. Zara grinned. "Can't tell you, or it won't come true." As they shared the souffle, which was ridiculously good, Marcus became aware that Victoria had left her table and was speaking quietly with the maitre d' near the entrance. Her entourage had already left, and she stood alone, her elegant silhouette somehow looking smaller than before. "Dad," Zara said suddenly, "we should thank her." "What?" "For dinner. Grandma always said you should thank people in person when they do something nice for you." Before Marcus could respond, Zara was already getting up. He followed quickly, catching up as she approached Victoria. "Excuse me, Miss Ashford?" Zara's voice was clear and confident. Victoria turned, and again that strange expression crossed her face. "Yes? I wanted to say thank you for dinner. That was really nice of you." Victoria's smile was soft, almost fragile. "You're very welcome. I hope your birthday has been special." "It has been. This is the fanciest place I've ever been. My dad saved up for 3 months to bring me here." "Zara," Marcus said quietly, embarrassed. But Victoria's attention had shifted to him. 3 months? Marcus straightened. He'd learned long ago not to be ashamed of what he could or couldn't afford. Some things are worth saving for. "Yes," Victoria said softly, her eyes moving between them. "They are." There was a pause, heavy with something unspoken. "We should go," Marcus said. "Thank you again for your generosity." "Wait," Victoria said suddenly. She seemed to surprise herself with the word. This might sound strange, but would you mind if I asked you something? Privately?" Marcus's protective instincts flared again. "I think we're good. Come on, Zara." "Please." Victoria's voice cracked slightly. It's about your daughter's mother." Marcus went very still. Beside him, Zara tensed. "What about her?" "Did she?" Victoria took a breath. Was her name Denise Williams? Denise Marie Williams? The world seemed to tilt. Marcus heard Zara's sharp intake of breath, felt his own heart skip. "How do you know my mother's name?" Zara asked, her voice small. Victoria's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. "Because 13 years ago, she saved my life." The restaurant noise faded to nothing. Marcus stared at the woman in front of him, his mind racing. "I don't understand," he said slowly. Victoria glanced around, then gestured toward a private dining room. "Please, let me explain. You deserve to know." Against his better judgment, Marcus nodded. They followed her into a small, elegant room with a single table and walls lined with books. Victoria closed the door and stood for a moment, gathering herself. 13 years ago, I was a different person," she began. "Young, reckless, convinced I was invincible because I had money and a last name that opened doors." She looked at Zara. "I was 22 and had just found out I was pregnant. The father wanted nothing to do with it. My family was pressuring me to handle it quietly. I was scared and alone and I ran." Her voice grew distant with memory. "I drove for hours, no destination in mind, just trying to escape. It was raining. The roads were slick. I was crying too hard to see properly. When I lost control of the car on Route 89, I thought that was it. The car flipped 3 times, ended up upside down in a ditch, filling with water." Zara reached for Marcus's hand, squeezing tight. "But someone saw it happen," Victoria continued. "A woman driving home from her night shift at the hospital. She didn't hesitate, didn't wait for help. She climbed down into that ditch, broke the window with a tire iron, and pulled me out. The water was rising fast. If she'd waited even another minute." She paused, composing herself. "She stayed with me until the ambulance came, held my hand, kept telling me everything would be okay, that my baby would be okay. I was in and out of consciousness, but I remember her face. I remember her voice. 'Mom, Zara whispered. Victoria nodded. I tried to find her afterward, but I only knew her first name Denise and that she worked at a hospital. Do you know how many Denises work in hospitals in this state? By the time I'd recovered enough to search properly, months had passed. Then years. I never stopped looking, but she looked at Marcus. She never told you? Marcus's throat was tight. She mentioned pulling someone from a car once, said it was just what anyone would do. She never made a big deal about it. That sounds like Mom, Zara said softly. Victoria moved to her purse, pulling out a worn piece of paper. I wrote her a letter, been carrying it for 13 years, hoping someday. She held it out with shaking hands. I know she's gone. I saw the obituary when I was researching after hearing your last name tonight, seeing Zara and putting the pieces together. But maybe you'd like to have this. Marcus took the letter, his own hands not quite steady. My daughter, Victoria said, looking at Zara with wonder. She's 12 now. Her name is Grace. I named her that because of the grace your mother showed me. She's the reason my daughter exists. The reason I got to be a mother at all. Tears were flowing freely down Zara's face now. Mom saved you both? Victoria nodded, then did something that probably shocked her as much as it did them. She dropped to her knees in front of Zara, designer dress and all. Your mother was an angel, a real one. And looking at you, I can see her in your eyes, in your smile. She lives on in you. Zara burst into sobs and threw her arms around Victoria. Marcus watched, his own eyes burning, as his daughter clung to this stranger who wasn't really a stranger at all. When they finally pulled apart, Victoria stood, brushing at her eyes. I'm sorry. I've ambushed you both. This isn't what you expected from your birthday dinner. Are you kidding? Zara said through her tears. This is the best birthday gift ever. A piece of my mom I didn't know about. Victoria looked at Marcus. Your wife was extraordinary. Yeah, he said roughly. She was. I'd like. Victoria hesitated. If it's not too presumptuous, I'd like to know you both. To tell Grace about the woman who saved us. To maybe. She trailed off. To be friends? Zara supplied hopefully. Victoria smiled. A real smile this time. I'd like that very much. Marcus found himself nodding. Denise would have wanted that. She never met a stranger, just friends she hadn't made yet. Dad used to get so frustrated, Zara added with a watery laugh. She'd invite random people for Thanksgiving, chat with everyone in line at the grocery store. She sounds wonderful, Victoria said. She was, Marcus and Zara said in unison, then smiled at each other. They talked for another hour. Victoria told them about Grace, about how she'd changed after the accident, dedicating herself to philanthropy and trying to live up to the second chance she'd been given. She showed them pictures of Grace, who had the same warm smile that Marcus remembered from Denise. She looks kind, Zara observed. She is, Victoria said proudly. Maybe you could meet her sometime? I'd love that, Zara said immediately, then looked at Marcus. If it's okay with Dad, Marcus thought about it. His instinct was always to protect Zara, to keep their small world safe and controlled. But Denise had always pushed against that, always opened their lives to new people and experiences. What would Mom do? He used to ask himself. Now he knew. I think that would be nice, he said. Victoria's relief was palpable. Grace is going to be so happy. She's always wanted to know more about the woman who saved us. As they prepared to leave, Victoria insisted on exchanging numbers. And please, she said, let me know if there's ever anything you need. I know it can't make up for your loss, but with respect, Marcus interrupted gently. We're not looking for charity, just friendship. Victoria nodded, understanding. Of course, friendship. At the door, she hesitated again. The letter. I know it's 13 years late, but everything in it is still true. They parted ways in the parking lot, Victoria to her Tesla, Marcus and Zara to his 10-year-old Honda. As they drove home, Zara held the letter carefully in her lap. Are you going to read it? Marcus asked. Not yet, she said. I want to save it for tomorrow, On Mom's birthday. Marcus's throat closed up. He'd forgotten tomorrow would have been Denise's 38th birthday. Leave it to Zara to remember. That's perfect, baby girl. They drove in comfortable silence for a while, the city lights blurring past. Then Zara spoke again. Dad, do you believe in signs? What kind of signs? Like messages. From heaven. Marcus considered his answer carefully. I think sometimes things happen that are too perfect to be coincidence. Like tonight? Like tonight. Zara nodded, satisfied. I think Mom wanted us to meet them. Victoria and Grace. I think this was her birthday gift to me. Marcus reached over and squeezed her hand. Could be, baby. Your mom always did have perfect timing. As they pulled into their apartment complex, Zara suddenly laughed. What? Marcus asked. I just realized my wish came true. Already? Must have been some wish. She grinned at him. I wished for a sign that Mom was still watching over us. Marcus pulled into their parking spot and turned to look at his daughter, so much like Denise in her faith and optimism. Looks like you got it. 2 weeks passed before they saw Victoria again. She texted occasionally, respectful of boundaries, just checking in. Then one Saturday, she invited them to lunch, her and Grace. Somewhere normal, she assured Marcus. Grace picked Five Guys. She's obsessed with their fries. So that's how Marcus found himself sitting in a burger joint, watching his daughter and Victoria's daughter chatter like they'd known each other forever. Grace had her mother's elegant features, but none of her reserve. She was bubbly and warm, full of questions about Zara's school, her interests, her favorite movies. Mom says your mom saved us, Grace said matter-of-factly between bites of burger. That's pretty cool. Zara nodded. She was a nurse. She saved lots of people. But we were special, Grace insisted, because she didn't have to stop. It was dangerous. Mom says the car could have exploded or something. Victoria winced. I may have dramatized slightly in the retelling. Mom does that, Grace told Zara conspiratorially. Makes everything sound like a movie. The girls giggled, and Marcus caught Victoria's eye. She smiled ruefully. They're getting along well, she said quietly. Like they've been friends forever, Marcus agreed. Zara doesn't always warm up to people quickly. Grace either. She's friendly but letting people in. That's harder. They watched their daughters trade fries and phone numbers, making plans for a movie next weekend before either parent had agreed to it. I think we've been decided for, Victoria observed. Looks like it. As lunch wound down, Grace suddenly asked, Can we visit her? Your mom? The table went quiet. Zara looked at Marcus. We go every Sunday, she said softly, to bring flowers and talk to her. Could we come? Grace asked. Mom and me? To say thank you? Victoria started to admonish her for asking, but Zara spoke first. I think she'd like that. The next day, they met at Evergreen Cemetery. It was a beautiful spot. On a hill overlooking the city, under an old oak tree, Denise's headstone was simple. Beloved wife and mother, helper of all. Grace had brought sunflowers. Because they're happy flowers, she explained. Victoria carried white roses. They stood quietly while Marcus and Zara did their usual ritual, telling Denise about their week, about Zara's A on her history test, about the funny thing that happened at Marcus's work. Then Victoria stepped forward. She knelt by the headstone, placing her roses carefully. I've wanted to say this for 13 years, she said softly. Thank you. Thank you for stopping. Thank you for risking your life for a stranger. Thank you for giving me the chance to be a mother. Her voice broke. I've tried to live up to the gift you gave me. I've tried to make it count. Grace knelt beside her mother, adding her sunflowers to the collection. Thank you for saving my mom, she said simply. And thanks for having such a cool daughter. I think we're going to be best friends. Zara moved to stand beside them, and suddenly all three were crying, holding each other while Marcus stood watch, his own eyes wet. When they finally stood, something had shifted. They weren't strangers brought together by tragedy anymore. They were something else, something new. Mom believed everything happened for a reason, Zara said as they walked back to the cars. Even the bad stuff. She said it all led somewhere good eventually. Victoria wiped her eyes. She sounds very wise. She was, Marcus said. She also said family wasn't just about blood, it was about who showed up. He looked at Victoria and Grace. You two showed up. Grace lit up. Does that mean we're family now? Zara grabbed her hand. I think it does. The months that followed were a gentle revolution. Grace and Zara became inseparable, spending weekends together, FaceTiming late into the night, sharing the kind of fierce friendship that only teenage girls can forge. Victoria and Marcus found an easy rhythm too. Coffee while the girls shopped. Dinners that started as drop-offs and became lingering conversations about parenting, loss, and healing. I never expected this, Victoria said one evening. They were at her penthouse the first time she'd invited them there. The girls were in Grace's room, supposedly doing homework, but more likely painting each other's nails and gossiping. Marcus stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out at the city lights. Quite a view. It's just buildings, Victoria said, joining him. Your apartment has something better. Creaky floors and a leaky faucet? She smiled. Warmth, history, life. This place, she gestured around the pristine space. It's beautiful, but it's cold. Grace and I rattle around in it like marbles in a museum. So change it, Marcus said simply. Victoria looked at him. Just like that? Why not? Zara and I redecorated after Denise died. Had to. Everything reminded us of what we'd lost, so we made new memories. Painted the walls purple, Zara's choice. Hung up her art projects everywhere. Made it ours instead of what it used to be. Purple walls, Victoria mused. My interior designer would faint. Good thing it's not their home then, she laughed. A real laugh. Marcus had noticed she did that more now. The careful control she'd worn like armor that first night had slowly melted away, revealing someone funnier, warmer, more real than the polished facade. Can I ask you something? She said suddenly. Why did you agree to this? To letting us into your lives? You had every reason to say no, Marcus considered. At first, it was for Zara. She needed to know that her mom's legacy lived on. But then, he paused. I realized I needed it too. Needed to see the good that came from our loss. And Grace, she's proof that Denise's sacrifice mattered. She's not the only proof, Victoria said quietly. What do you mean? I told you I changed after the accident, but I didn't tell you how much. She turned to face him fully. Before that night, I was heading down a dark path. Drugs, reckless behavior, pushing everyone away. I thought money made me invincible, but really, I was just lost. When your wife pulled me from that car, she didn't just save my life. She saved me from myself. I started a foundation, she continued. The Denise Williams Foundation, actually. I didn't know her last name, so I couldn't name it properly. But it funds medical training for first responders, provides equipment to rural hospitals, offers scholarships to nursing students. Last year alone, we helped train over 300 people in emergency rescue techniques. Marcus stared at her, speechless. You named a foundation after my wife? I told you I tried to find her. This was my way of honoring her when I couldn't thank her in person. It's helped save dozens of lives over the years. Her legacy ripples outward in ways you can't imagine. He turned away, overwhelmed. Victoria placed a gentle hand on his arm. I should have told you sooner. I just didn't want it to seem like I was trying to buy your friendship or... It's not that, Marcus said roughly. It's just... Denise always believed one person could make a difference. To know that her one act of kindness led to all that. He had to stop, emotion choking him. She would be so proud, Victoria said softly, and so grateful that you've kept her spirit alive in Zara. That girl is special, Marcus. You've done an amazing job. I had a good partner, he managed, even if she's not here anymore. They stood quietly for a moment, the city glittering below them. I have a confession, Victoria said. That night at the restaurant, I wasn't just staring because Zara reminded me of Denise. It was because I was watching you two together. The way you are with her, protective but not overbearing, present in every moment. It made me realize what I've been missing with Grace. What do you mean? I love my daughter more than life. But I've been so focused on providing for her, on building this empire to leave her, that I forgot to just be with her. You and Zara showed me that all the money in the world can't buy what you two have. Marcus looked at her, really seeing her for perhaps the first time. Not the billionaire heiress, not the woman Denise had saved, but just Victoria, a single parent trying her best, carrying her own grief and guilt. You're a good mom, he said. Grace is lucky to have you. I'm trying to be better, she said. You both inspire me, you and Zara. A burst of laughter from Grace's room broke the moment. We should probably check on them, Victoria said, but she made no move to go. Neither did Marcus. 6 months later, the four of them stood in the ribbon-cutting ceremony for the Denise Marie Williams Memorial Wing at City General Hospital. Victoria had insisted Marcus and Zara be there, though they'd tried to decline the spotlight. This is her day, Victoria had said firmly. You belong here. The wing was beautiful state-of-the-art, emergency facilities, training rooms for first responders, and a quiet meditation space for families. But what made Marcus's throat tight was the portrait in the lobby, Denise in her scrubs, smiling that radiant smile that had first captured his heart 20 years ago. How? He asked Victoria. Zara, she said simply. She gave me photos. We had an artist create this. Do you like it? It's perfect, he said roughly. During the dedication, Victoria spoke about the night Denise had saved her, about the foundation's work, about how one act of selfless courage could ripple through time. She introduced Marcus and Zara as the family who keeps Denise's spirit alive every day. The applause was thunderous, but Zara only had eyes for her mother's portrait. She looks happy, she whispered to Marcus. She was, baby. She really was. After the ceremony, as donors and hospital staff mingled, Grace found them. This is amazing, she said to Zara. Your mom is like a superhero with a whole building named after her. Zara smiled. She would have said it was too much fuss. No, Marcus corrected gently. She would have loved that it helps people. That's all she ever wanted to do. Victoria approached with an elderly couple. Marcus, Zara, I'd like you to meet someone. This is Tom and Linda Chen. Their son Brian is an EMT now because of a scholarship from the foundation. He saved 3 people from a fire last month. The Chens bowed slightly, tears in their eyes. Your wife's memory helped our son find his calling, Linda said. We are forever grateful. As more people approached with similar stories, nurses who'd received training, families whose loved ones had been saved by equipment, the foundation provided Marcus felt something shift in his chest. The grief was still there, would always be there, but now it shared space with something else. Pride, joy, purpose. You did this, he told Victoria later, as the reception wound down. Denise did this, she corrected. I just tried to honor her. They were sitting in the meditation room, a peaceful space with soft lighting and comfortable chairs. The girls had gone to get food from the cafeteria, leaving them alone. I need to tell you something, Victoria said suddenly. Marcus tensed. Their friendship had been so easy, so natural, he'd almost forgotten how it started. The board of my company wants me to relocate, she continued, to London. They're expanding our European operations and want me to oversee it. The words hit Marcus like a physical blow. Oh, it's a 5-year minimum commitment, maybe longer. She wasn't looking at him. It's a huge opportunity, the kind that cements a legacy. When? He managed. They want an answer by the end of the month. They sat in silence. Marcus's mind spun. In just 6 months, Victoria and Grace had become woven into their lives. Zara would be devastated. And Marcus, he'd be lying if he said he hadn't started to depend on Victoria's friendship, their coffee talks, their shared dinners, the way she understood the particular challenges of single parenthood. It's an amazing opportunity, he said finally. You should take it. Victoria's laugh was bitter. Should I? Your career is important. Grace will adapt. Kids are resilient. He was saying all the right things, even as something in his chest crumbled. Is that what you really think? She asked. He forced himself to meet her eyes. I think you have to do what's best for your family, just like I do. She stood abruptly. Right, of course. What's best? She walked to the door, then paused. For what it's worth, the best thing that ever happened to Grace and me wasn't a business deal or a career opportunity. It was a spilled glass of water and a man who said, "She's with me." Then she was gone, leaving Marcus alone in the meditation room, staring at a plaque on the wall that read, "In memory of Denise Marie Williams, who taught us that courage is just love in action." The girls returned to find their parents oddly quiet. The easy warmth of the day had shifted to something strained. Grace and Zara exchanged glances, but said nothing. Teenagers were more perceptive than adults gave them credit for. On the drive home, Zara finally broke the silence. What's wrong? Nothing, baby. Just been a long day. Dad. Her tone was so like her mother's when she knew he was being evasive. Is it about Victoria? Marcus's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What makes you ask that? She looked sad when she said goodbye. And you're doing that thing with your jaw. What thing? The thing where you clench it when you're upset but trying not to show it. He forced his jaw to relax. Victoria might be moving to London for work. Zara went very still. For how long? 5 years. Maybe more. Oh, such a small word to carry so much weight. Grace didn't say anything. She might not know yet. They drove the rest of the way in silence. At home, Zara went straight to her room. Marcus heard her on the phone with Grace almost immediately, their voices low and urgent. He made dinner mechanically, his mind elsewhere. Was he being selfish, wanting them to stay? Victoria had built an empire. She had responsibilities beyond their small circle. Who was he to stand in the way of that? But as he stood in his purple-walled kitchen, surrounded by Zara's art and the remnants of the life they'd built after loss, he couldn't shake Victoria's words. The best thing that ever happened to us. His phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. I'm sorry about earlier. Can we talk? He stared at the message for a long moment. Then he typed back, tomorrow, after the girls are at school. The night stretched long. Marcus barely slept, his mind turning over possibilities, arguments, fears. Somewhere around 3 a.m., he found himself at the kitchen table with Denise's photo album. Their wedding, Zara's birth, family vacations, Sunday dinners, all the moments that made a life. What would you tell me to do, Dee? He whispered to her smiling face. But he already knew. Denise had never let fear make her decisions. She'd pulled a stranger from a burning car because it was right, not because it was safe. The next morning, after dropping Zara at school, Marcus drove to Victoria's office. She was waiting in the lobby, dressed in her power suit, but somehow looking smaller than usual. Let's walk, she suggested. They ended up in the small park across the street, empty except for an elderly man feeding pigeons. I shouldn't have ambushed you yesterday, Victoria began. No, Marcus interrupted. I shouldn't have reacted like that. I was just surprised. Were you? Really? Or were you relieved? He looked at her sharply. What? I know what we are, Marcus. I know what this is. Friendship born from unusual circumstances. I'm grateful for it, more than you know. But I also know I'm not. She paused. I'm not her. I'm not Denise. And maybe that's what you need, someone who isn't her. Someone who doesn't remind you of what you lost. Victoria! I see how you look at me sometimes, like you're surprised I'm there, like you're waiting for permission to move forward. And I understand. I do. But maybe distance is what we both need to play. Stop. Marcus's voice was firm. Just stop. She fell silent, watching him. You want to know what I see when I look at you? I see a woman who turned tragedy into purpose. I see a single mother who loves her daughter fiercely. I see someone who brought light back into our lives when I didn't even realize how dark things had gotten. He took a breath. And yes, sometimes I feel guilty. Not because you're not Denise, but because you are so completely yourself that I forget to miss her when you're around, and that terrifies me." Victoria's eyes widened. "But not as much as the thought of you leaving terrifies me," he continued. "Not as much as watching Zara lose her best friend. Not as much as going back to just existing instead of living." "Marcus, I'm not asking you to be Denise. I'm asking you to be Victoria. To stay and be Victoria with us." She looked away, blinking rapidly. "The board will be furious if I turn this down." "So let them be furious," she laughed wetly. "It's not that simple. This is my career, my future." "Your future is what you make it," Marcus said. "And from where I'm standing, you already have a pretty good foundation right here. Pun intended." That drew another laugh. "Stronger this time. Zara's father jokes are rubbing off on you. Occupational hazard of hanging around us." They sat on a bench, the morning sun warming their faces. "I built walls after the accident," Victoria said quietly. "Professional success felt safer than personal connections. Then you and Zara crashed through those walls like wrecking balls. We're subtle like that." She bumped his shoulder. "I'm scared too, you know. Scared of wanting something I'm not sure I'm allowed to have." Marcus turned to face her fully. "My wife saved your life 13 years ago. Maybe that was just the beginning. Maybe she brought us together for a reason." "You really believe that?" "I believe Denise would have loved you. I believe she would have wanted Zara to have you and Grace in her life. And I believe," he paused, gathering courage, "I believe she would have wanted me to be happy again, even if that happiness looks different than what we had." Victoria studied his face. "This changes things. You know that, right? We can't just be friends who have dinner sometimes if I stay." "I know. The girls will have opinions, many opinions. They're teenagers. They have opinions about everything. The media will have a field day. Single dad, billionaire heiress, it writes itself. Let them write what they want. We'll be too busy living." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, "The board meeting is Thursday. If I'm going to torpedo my career, I should probably prepare a good speech." "You're staying?" "I'm staying." Marcus felt something crack open in his chest, flooding him with warmth. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. I'm probably about to become very unemployed." "I doubt that. You own 40% of the restaurants in this city, remember?" "Only 30%, she corrected. "And that's just the mid-range establishments." So humble. They sat together as the park filled with morning joggers and dog walkers, comfortable in their silence. Finally, Victoria asked, "So, what happens now?" Now we go pick up our daughters from school and tell them the good news, together." "And after that?" Marcus smiled. "After that, we figure it out as we go, like families do." Thursday came with unexpected drama. Victoria had underestimated how the board would react to her decision. By noon, business news sites were running headlines. Ashford Heiress turns down London expansion, and leadership shakeup at Ashford Industries. Marcus was at work when the text started coming, first from Zara. "Is Victoria really giving up London for us?" Then from concerned friends who'd seen the news. Then from Victoria herself. "Board meeting was interesting. Free for dinner? I need wine. Lots of wine." That evening, they met at a quiet restaurant, not the Belmont, but a family place Zara had discovered that made the best lasagna in the city. Victoria looked tired but oddly peaceful. "So?" Marcus asked. "So I'm no longer CEO of Ashford Industries," she said, then smiled at his shocked expression. "By choice. I'm transitioning to chairman of the board. Less day-to-day operations, more strategic oversight, and more time for what matters." "That's a huge change." "It's the right change. I've been running that company since my father died 10 years ago. It's time for fresh blood. And frankly, I'm tired of missing Grace's school plays for quarterly earnings calls." Grace and Zara, who'd been pretending not to eavesdrop, abandoned all pretense. "Does this mean you're really staying?" Zara asked. "We're really staying," Victoria confirmed. The girls shrieked and hugged, drawing amused looks from other diners. "I have another announcement. Victoria continued once they'd calmed down. I've decided to expand the foundation, make it the primary focus of my work going forward. And I'd like to create a youth advisory board, starting with you two. Us? Grace squeaked. You both understand what it means to lose someone and choose hope anyway. That perspective is valuable. Plus, Zara, your idea about mobile health units for underserved neighborhoods was brilliant. That was just something I mentioned at dinner, Zara protested. The best ideas usually are, Victoria said. As they talked through possibilities, mobile units, expanded training programs, memorial scholarships, Marcus watched his daughter come alive. She had her mother's passion for helping others, and now she had an outlet for it. Later, as they walked to their cars, the girls ran ahead, still chattering about their plans. Thank you, Marcus said to Victoria. For what? For seeing her. Really seeing her. Not just as my daughter or your daughter's friend, but as her own person with things to contribute. Victoria slipped her hand into his. It was the first time she'd done that, and Marcus felt like a teenager with his heart racing. She makes it easy. She's extraordinary, Marcus, just like her parents. They reached the cars where the girls were already hugging goodbye, making plans for the weekend. Dad, can Grace sleep over Saturday? Zara asked. We want to work on foundation stuff. If it's okay with Victoria, Marcus said. Actually, Victoria said, why don't you both come to our place? I'll cook. Everyone stared at her. What? I can cook. Mom, you once burned water? Grace said. That was one time, and I was distracted by a conference call. How about we all cook? Marcus suggested diplomatically, and so Saturday found them in Victoria's penthouse kitchen, which looked like it had never been used. Marcus taught Grace how to properly dice onions, while Victoria and Zara made garlic bread. The kitchen filled with laughter and the smell of marinara sauce. This is nice, Grace said suddenly. They all paused. What is, sweetie? Victoria asked. This. All of us, cooking together, like a real family. The adults exchanged glances over the girls' heads. We are a real family, Zara said firmly. Just not a traditional one. A chosen family, Grace added. The best kind, Marcus agreed, his throat tight. After dinner, as the girls disappeared to work on their foundation presentation, Marcus and Victoria cleaned up together. The domesticity of it, washing dishes side by side, felt both foreign and perfectly right. I've been thinking, Victoria said, handing him a plate to dry. About what you said. About Denise bringing us together for a reason. She paused. Do you really believe that? Marcus set the plate down, considering. I believe life is too random for everything to be planned, but I also believe we can choose to find meaning in randomness. Denise saved you. That led to the foundation, which led to us meeting, which led to this. He gestured around the kitchen, encompassing everything, their daughter's laughter from the other room, the easy partnership of shared tasks, the warmth that had nothing to do with the stove. Maybe it's not fate. Maybe it's just us choosing to make something beautiful out of something tragic. Victoria turned off the water and faced him. That might be the wisest thing I've ever heard. I have my moments. She reached up and touched his face gently. Yes, you do. The kiss was soft, tentative, a question more than a statement. Marcus answered by pulling her closer, feeling something inside him that had been frozen for 3 years finally begin to thaw. They pulled apart at the sound of footsteps. Zara and Grace stood in the doorway, grinning like they'd won the lottery. Finally, Grace exclaimed. Do you know how long we've been waiting for this? Zara demanded. You've been planning this? Marcus asked. Duh, both girls said in unison. We're much better at this than you are, Zara added. All we had to do was get you in the same room enough times. Victoria laughed, the sound bright and free, outsmarted by teenagers. It's embarrassing, Marcus agreed, but effective. 1 year later, they gathered again at Evergreen Cemetery. It was Denise's birthday, and this time they came as an official family. Marcus and Victoria had married in a small ceremony 6 months earlier, with Zara and Grace as co-maids of honor. The gravestone now had fresh flowers, sunflowers from Grace, purple orchids from Victoria, and white roses from Marcus. Zara had brought something different, a photo from their wedding, all four of them smiling at the camera. "Hi, Mom," Zara said, kneeling by the stone. "I wanted to show you our new family photo. I think you'd really like it. Victoria makes Dad laugh the way you used to, and Grace is like the sister I always wanted. We fight sometimes, but in a good way." Grace knelt beside her. "Hi, Mrs. Williams. I wanted to say thank you again, not just for saving my mom, but for raising Zara. She's the best sister anyone could ask for, even when she steals my clothes." "You steal mine too," Zara protested. "That's what sisters do," Grace said simply. Victoria stepped forward, placing a hand on the stone. "We're taking care of them, Denise, both of them, and they're taking care of us. The foundation has helped save 47 lives this year. Each one is part of your legacy." Marcus was last. He touched the warm granite, remembering another time, another life. "Thank you," he whispered, "for saving her, for giving me Zara, for teaching me that love isn't limited, that hearts can expand, that families can grow in ways we never expect." He stepped back, and they stood together, Marcus, Victoria, Zara, and Grace. Four people who had found each other through loss and chosen to build something new. As they walked back to the car, Zara slipped her hand into Victoria's. "Mom?" she said, the title coming naturally now. Victoria's eyes misted. "Yes, sweetheart? I think my mom would be really happy we found each other." Victoria squeezed her hand. "I know she would." They drove home together. To the house they'd bought 6 months ago, nothing as grand as the penthouse, but perfect for them. Purple walls in Zara's room, by her choice. Art supplies scattered on every surface. Family dinners that ran long. Laughter that filled the spaces grief had once occupied. That night, as Marcus and Victoria got ready for bed, she said, "The board approved the new mobile units today. We can launch the program next month." "That's amazing." "What did you name it?" She smiled. "The Denise Williams Mobile Care Initiative, bringing help to those who need it, wherever they are." Marcus pulled her close. "She would have loved that." "She would have loved all of this," Victoria said, gesturing to encompass their life. The teenage voices arguing good-naturedly down the hall about whose turn it was to walk the dog, the family photos covering the dresser, the quiet peace of a home filled with love. "Sometimes," Marcus said, "I think about that night at the Belmont, how you just walked up to our table, how everything could have been different if you hadn't." "But I did," Victoria said simply, "and you said she's with me, and now we're all together." They fell asleep to the sound of their daughters laughing, and somewhere in his dreams, Marcus could have sworn he heard Denise laughing too, joy echoing across time and space, binding them all together in the strange, beautiful tapestry of chosen family. Outside, the stars shone bright over their home, keeping watch over 4 hearts that had learned the hardest truth of all. Love doesn't divide when shared. It multiplies. It grows. It saves us, one unexpected moment at a time. In the morning, there would be breakfast, chaos, and arguments about homework, and all the beautiful, mundane moments that make a life. But tonight, in the quiet darkness, Marcus held his wife and whispered a prayer of gratitude to the woman who had made it all possible, the nurse who stopped on a rainy night, the wife who taught him how to love, the mother who lived on in every act of kindness their blended family shared with the world. The Foundation's first mobile unit launched on a crisp October morning. They'd painted it purple, Zara's suggestion, unanimously approved. "Mom's favorite color," she'd said simply, and that had ended any debate. The unveiling ceremony was small, just family, the Foundation staff, and a few local officials. But what made it special was the crew. The driver was Brian Chen, the EMT whose parents Marcus and Victoria had met at the hospital dedication. The nurse practitioner was a young woman named Keisha, who'd received one of the Foundation's first scholarships. The paramedic was a man who'd been saved by one of the Foundation's rural training programs and decided to pay it forward. "It's like Mom saving people all over again," Zara said, watching the purple unit gleam in the morning Sunday. "Through all of them, Grace linked arms with her sister. We should ride along sometime. See it in action. Already arranged, Victoria said, producing 2 junior volunteer badges. Next Saturday, if your fathers agree. Both girls turned pleading eyes on Marcus and Victoria's husband, a phrase Marcus still wasn't entirely used to. How do we say no to that? He laughed. That Saturday, they all crowded into the mobile unit as it made its rounds through underserved neighborhoods. The girls watched wide-eyed as the team provided free checkups, distributed medications, and offered comfort to people who might otherwise go without care. At one stop, an elderly woman grabbed Keisha's hand. "Thank you," she said, tears streaming down her weathered face. "I haven't seen a doctor in 2 years. Couldn't afford it. This is a miracle." After she left, clutching free medications for her diabetes, Zara turned to Marcus. "This is what Mom did, isn't it? Made miracles for people?" "Every day," Marcus confirmed. The unit was a success beyond their wildest dreams. Within 6 months, they had 3 units running, with plans for 5 more. The foundation's budget had tripled thanks to Victoria's business connections and a groundswell of community support. But it was the small moments that mattered most. Like when Grace designed a logo featuring intertwined hearts that became the foundation's symbol, or when Zara started a video series interviewing people whose lives had been saved, sharing their stories with the world. Or when Marcus and Victoria, working late one night on grant applications, looked up to find their daughters had fallen asleep on the couch, Zara's head on Grace's shoulder. "We did good," Victoria whispered. "We did," Marcus agreed. The girls stirred at their voices. "Are we home yet?" Grace mumbled. Zara answered without opening her eyes. "We're always home when we're together." And in that moment, in the quiet of their living room with grant paperwork scattered around them and their daughter safe and loved, Marcus understood what Denise had always known. Salvation came in many forms. Sometimes it was pulling someone from a burning car. Sometimes it was opening your heart when it seemed too broken to ever work again. And sometimes it was as simple as saying, "She's with me," and meaning it with every fiber of your being. The foundation grew. The family grew closer. And somewhere in heaven, a nurse named Denise smiled, knowing that her one act of courage on a rainy night had rippled outward in ways she never could have imagined. Love was like that, infinite in its reach, boundless in its power to heal. 1 year turned to 2, 2 to 5. The mobile units became a model for other cities. The foundation expanded into disaster relief, always first on the scene when communities needed help. And at the center of it all, 4 people who'd found each other through loss continued to choose each other every day. When Zara graduated high school as valedictorian, she gave a speech about ripples, how one person's kindness could spread outward forever, touching lives in ways we never see. When Grace followed a year later, her speech was about chosen families and the power of love to transcend biology. They went to college together, roommates by choice, sisters by love. They both studied public health, determined to carry on Denise's legacy in their own ways. And every Sunday, the whole family still visited the cemetery, bringing flowers and updates, gratitude and love. Because some bonds transcend death. Some loves echo through generations. And sometimes, in a restaurant where you don't belong, at a table with a stranger, life offers you exactly what you need if you're brave enough to say yes. If this story touched your heart, if you believe in the power of kindness to change lives and love to heal wounds, please subscribe for more. Share this story with someone who needs to remember that miracles still happen, that families come in all forms, and that sometimes the best things in life begin with the simplest words. "She's with me." Until next time, hold your loved ones close and remember we're all just one act of kindness away from changing someone's world.